Hello, everybody. How's everybody going today? This is July 14th, which is Bastille Day. It's kind of like a special day for some of us, not special for most of the world. Today, we have a great session, which is almost the reason why we're doing this, to be honest with you. We've tried for the past couple of years to bridge the gap between the academia part of service design, which is very abstract and conceptual, and the very practical part of service design, which is very real and very tangible. And today we're going to have two wonderful speakers who have dedicated their profession and a career to do exactly that. So it's a great way for us to have a new session. This is I think our 10th, maybe 11th session we have. They're all available on YouTube if you want to catch up. But today is going to be really good because it's finally a super practical way for us to apply what we've been discussing over the past several months. As always, I want to say a big thank you to Slalom and to Precocity, who have been helping us to put those meetups together for the past couple of years. And thank you so much for that. So today is July 14th. This is Service Design Network Data. So I am Greg Laclouvie, and we have Brandon. Hi, Brandon. And Robin and Brenda as well, who will help us moderate this session. As I was saying, you can catch all the recorded session, including today, that will be available probably this evening or maybe tomorrow morning, depending on traffic. But you can go to our YouTube channel, Service Design Network, the last chapter. You can catch up all the past sessions we've had the past 3 months. Today, we're going to be talking very quickly about our guests. We're going to go over the open Q&A rules. We're going to talk about some super practical service design, and we'll have an open Q&A at the end. We can engage directly with our guests. We only have 1 hour. We'll try to be very respectful of our guests this time. We usually go a bit long, depending on the questions we have, but we're going to try to keep it at 1 hour. I just wanted to let you know that we have had some great feedback from the past few sessions we've had. And we're very happy to let you know that both Andy Pauline and Adam St. John Lawrence have agreed to come back and do more of this. And most likely Jim and Mark will as well. But we've been trying to kind of like stay away from the Zoom fatigue. So we're going to see how October, November, December shapes, but we're going to have definitely those wonderful speakers as well, and maybe even Megan and Erik. We'll ask them later on. We have a couple of 3 events coming up. So today we'll have practical service design with Megan Miller from Stanford and Erik Flowers from Intuit. But next month in August, we're going to start spreading the sessions a bit more. We have almost like every week for the past 3 months. We're going to try to get back to once a month. But we have a wonderful topic on government, service design in government with Azad Damoud and Erin Narges from Fannie Mae and the city of San Francisco. They're going to talk specifically about government service design. And in September, we'll have Eric Wood from Explain Consultancy, who will talk to us about how to actually create engagement and adoption with service design. He has some very unique way of doing this through visualization. Really interesting stuff he's doing. So keep that in mind. Today, we have the wonderful Megan Miller and Erik Flowers who are going to talk to us about practical service design. They have their own bit of a secret sauce, so we'll get to it towards the end of the session, but we're going to get to know them a little bit first. So first, some ground rules about how to engage them and talk to them. So we have Brandon, Christopher, and Brenda who are going to be navigating and kind of creating the questions you may have for them throughout the whole session. If you have a specific question for them, please ask of you in your chat room. Make sure it's obvious that is a question to either Megan or Erik or both, because you guys talk a lot, which is wonderful, but sometimes it's kind of hard to see through this huge thread what questions actually are for our guests. So just make it obvious for us to find you, and then we will ask the question to Megan and Erik towards the end of the session. So welcome, Megan and Erik. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to introduce yourself. Most likely people know who you are. If they don't know who you are, this is the chance you have to introduce yourself and let us know who you are, what you do, be as private as you want to be or as open as you want to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. Erik, you look put out? Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Well, you beat me to my Zoom unmute key on my keyboard. And that made me sad. And I also want to apologize ahead of time. I use a mechanical keyboard, so I have to mute myself when I'm not talking and I want to type. Otherwise, you'll hear it. You can go first, Megan.
Okay. So it's so great to see so many of you here, and I'm recognizing some names in the chat. So wonderful to see you all. My name is Megan Miller. I work at Stanford University. I'm the director of service design there. And just briefly, I guess to put things in context, Erik and I have been kind of partnering up together for the past 5 or 6 years with practical service design. It's a side project. So we both work full time, just so you all know. And all the things that we do on the side is a labor of love. Though we have been kind of in hiding for a little while with life as that happens. I have 2 small children and, full-time jobs, and life just hits you sideways, right? So we're really excited to be here today and to chat and kind of catch up on what's been going on the last few years since we've been connected up with the community. Just to give a little more about my job, I work in the administration part of Stanford University. I've worked there for a long time. And over time, I was really able to carve out a service design role. And it's been a long and uphill battle to get there. And I'm super excited, that now I'm at a position where I'm a director. I have a team under me. I've been able to make the case for service design. I continue to line up service design work within Stanford in the administration to improve experiences for students, faculty, and staff. So that's just a little teaser of some of the insights that I'll be bringing to the table today.
So Erik, before you come in, Megan, tell us a bit different if there is a difference between the D School, which is very famous, we all know the D School that is in Stanford, versus what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So D School is a teaching institution at Stanford and a public-facing organization. So they have fellows, they teach undergraduate classes and graduate students. You can get a degree kind of through them. And then they do outward-facing types of trainings and engagements to the world. So they don't really focus on the internal administration of Stanford. And so my role, I sit in the business affairs organization, in the heart of the business, in the administration part of Stanford, and I work with administrative units like the business of Stanford to improve all sorts of things, whether that's IT systems or teaching services or any variety of other kinds of services. So we work with all, IT, the financial group, the real estate group, you name it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Erik?
Yeah, so I'm Erik Flowers, and I work at Intuit, the company that makes QuickBooks and TurboTax and Mint and a whole bunch of other stuff that is, used by accounting and business professionals. It's kind of the opposite end of the spectrum of where Megan works, where she works, in a role that provides a service to let's call it a patron of sort that's engaging with what she creates, which is the university staff and faculty and students. It's not like she's not building the things that they use if they log into a system or if they go to a printer or they're using a key card or whatever. These things that those are all assemblies of an organization that needs a lot of choreography. And I'm way down on the other end of the spectrum at, a software company that has services and service-like experiences. But in the end, our focus is on, making the finance, personal finance, small business finance tools and software. And so it's saying, okay, how do you create a service-like experience when you're selling products, and especially when you're selling SaaS products, which are month-over-month engagements that are, extremely complex, and, with the range of services and the types of, personas we have. I mean, it's everyone in the world. There is no one type of persona. And so I've, came to Intuit almost 7 years ago, and I was exploring Intuit at this time 7 years ago, and it arrived 6.5 years ago. to look at doing service design and entered the company as the first designer tasked with coordinating the customer service experience, customer care, support, whatever you want to call it, phone agents, chat agents, knowledge base, like when you need tech support. And while there were a lot of people who were very experienced and good at what it makes a good customer support experience, they had never taken a UX product design resource and applied it to the care experience. And this was being planned by my boss at the time in late 2013. And so I arrived as a product designer, like a UX person who had a passion for entrepreneurial style service design within any type of company. It was like, yeah, okay, let's apply design to customer experience. And since then, I've bounced around through different orgs. Some were hyper focused on product, mobile apps, software experiences, things that you could see and touch on the screen, and then things that were hyper intangible, like the experience of our third-party bookkeepers. There was a QuickBooks Live service where you could go into QuickBooks and click a thing, and a bookkeeper appears on the other end from within the app, and it's a real person somewhere in the country working, as a remote worker to basically be like a human inside the product. And I was designing that back-end experience for those bookkeeping professionals. And so there's nothing tangible about it. It was like, well, how do you be, a talking head in a little webcam box in this software and then do accounting for small business owners across the country? And now I'm sort of in this pretty cool space where I'm applying design and all my skills to designing a partnership program. There's nothing tangible about that. There's no products there. There's no screens. There's no UX, and the wireframes can't help me. It's not a problem that can be solved with the things that are typically taught by design. And yet I am a customer researcher and product designer, basically creating now a partnership program. And I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more later, but that concept is crazy and difficult to explain if people don't understand it. And it's like, what is a designer who's supposed to be in Figma right now creating a partnership tier program? That's crazy. So
yeah, let's see if we can get into it. I'm sure some of it's going to come up very, very soon. But most importantly, tomorrow is July 15th, Erik. Have you done your taxes?
No, I'm on my second extension.
Okay. I'm going to check on you next week, okay?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
It's not that difficult. If you have the right software.
I was talking about this with coworkers yesterday. I have a accountant who wears a white shirt and a tie that I've been using since I was 16 years old, and he's done my taxes every single year in Utah. And it's like my accountant, and I call him up and we do it over the phone every single year.
Does your boss know that?
She does, and she's on the call actually.
All right, let's get to it, guys. I just want to let you know that Megan and Erik have been very kind, and they've actually, obviously we just discussed that, they actually have courses and they have some video that you can actually just take. They are giving us a discount. So if you actually go to their website, practicalservicedesign.teachable.com, and you punch in Dallas 2020, you will get a discount. Is this right, Megan?
I think this is right. Erik, what's the amount of the discount?
If you go to servicedesign.school, you can sign up for the course. And I think we just wanted people to give it a try, not have to worry. So it's actually 50% off. So it's $75. And, we've had hundreds of people take it. The satisfaction rate is 99.9. All people all over the world. I mean, I would say people like it. You're going to like it. I promise. If you don't like it, there's a 30-day refund. We've had people take the whole course and be like, I didn't like it. Give me a refund, or just send you a refund. So it's pretty risk-free.
So Erik, is practicalservicedesign.teachable.com the wrong URL?
It's the same thing.
That's the same thing.
Cool. Okay, cool. So you guys can go there and text.
Erik's proud of his many URLs that
I have so many domains
he collects for us.
Okay. All right. let's get to it. So we're going to keep this conversational. We want to have this really nice open conversation with the two of you guys. This is, of course, everybody can ask you questions as well, but I'm going to start with some like high-level questions. And then if people want to ask questions, we're going to wait towards the end of the session if they want to follow up on some of those things. And we're going to discuss probably towards the end your own personal methodology that you put together that you guys are famous for. This practical service design, most likely blueprinting, towards the end. So first question, how have your views on service design changed in the past 5 years? Megan, you want to start?
Sure. So 5 years ago, I was forming my service design team at Stanford. So it's a pretty big change for me going from kind of trying to do it solo and convince folks that this was a thing to getting funding and hiring people to be on this team. And I think there was a lot I didn't know early on in what service design actually looks like in practice. And that was what drove Erik and I to start the practical service design community and create the blueprinting format that we use and other resources. And it's just continued. I mean, you could think of what we've published to the public as like the very tip of the iceberg of all the methodology and kind of problem solving that we've done in working in the organization. And so, at Stanford in my team, we had to learn a lot of lessons about how to practice service design and what it actually looks like. So I think the biggest thing for me that has changed is when I was a bushy-tailed, wide-eyed young service designer jumping into the field, I think I really was holding up service design as the flag, right? And championing it and carrying that torch and thinking that if I could just educate everyone about what it was, that everyone would join the bandwagon, right? And so I think for me, the biggest thing that's changed is seeing service design as a toolkit that you have to use to communicate in the language of the business and solve business problems. And I know that maybe sounds kind of like, oh, well, that's basically how you could sum up all design. And that's true. So I think it's reorienting around how do we bring the toolkit effectively to the organization. And I think more people need to focus on that and less about the theory or the abstract ideas or the concepts, or we need to think about how to really effectively engage the business. So that's my thought, I guess. It's not really a change of view, it's more just a reorientation.
Erik, do you have similar opinion?
Yeah. So, 5 years, I mean, that's kind of a kind of a milestone amount, because that's when we kind of started with the idea of practical service design. We didn't really have any connection to, the public and other people. It was just us saying, oh, let's get this domain and put out this thing, because we were going to give a talk at a conference. And I think originally, service design, I really thought that it would be a role and a title, and it would be a thing you do, and you're a service designer, and capital S service, capital D design. But now, coming from a space where there are so many different disciplines that are applicable, to what it takes to deliver, a product-based business. And this audience might be a little different, but, in the chat, type the word banana if your job is firmly a service and would not be misinterpreted by being a product or something that was kind of skewed to where it's like, well, I'm applying service design, but I actually do this. I talk to people all the time. I mean, if you're a UX designer at a bank working on something that's service designy, I have not met a lot of people who are actually working on the choreography and the actual, experience architecture of the service itself. That's typically owned by, business development people, product managers, program managers, people who, are much more closer to management consultants. And in fact, I even lost out a job as an internal service designer because it was more desirable to look for someone who had management consulting experience. And that's kind of where I think my views of things have changed. It's like, it's really lowercase s, lowercase d service design. And it's a mindset and it's an approach to orchestrating and doing the choreography of an ecosystem experience and, of a systemic approach to what happens to something over time. But I think it actually hurts the cause to try and conflate it with design being the thing you do. It's like saying, is a wedding planner, do they design a wedding? Does an author design a book? Does, a person who makes, fancy birthday cakes, do they design a cake? No, it's like you would never say that. And yet, am I a service designer because I figure out how to do an onboarding experience for a tax application? It's like, it's kind of like, we went too far. The pendulum went way too far trying to make service design a job title people can have on their business cards. And that little tiny slice of people who actually work on a service, maybe, but 9 out of 10 people I talk to are people coming from the world of user experience, or coming from the world of technology and products and wireframes and Smashing Magazine, trying to say, how do I elevate my prestige by a title that doesn't put me in the little box of being an interface designer? Oh, I'm going to try service design. And then you realize that no one knows what you're talking about. No one's going to accept it. And that I don't really see it as something that should be pursued as a role so much as an approach. I would say it's closer to saying I'm being mindful. Like, what's your job? Oh, I'm mindful. What does that mean? I walk around meditating. Well, being mindful it's not a job. It's just a way you approach it. What do you actually do? Oh, I'm a coordinator at a whatever, So and
I think I'm building on what you said, Erik. So we have to figure out how to get the people who are in those roles. You mentioned the kind of management type roles, to buy in and get excited about service design as a concept. And then I think the doors start opening, because once you can open their minds, they'll start to see, oh my gosh, I'm missing this whole swath of a toolkit that I didn't have. I'm missing all these capabilities on my team. I'm missing resources. I'm missing time in my schedule to do user testing. And so as designers, when we come from a design background, and I also came from a design background, that design toolkit is still completely invaluable as a service designer. So don't feel like that that's not a foundation you can bring. I think it's about the reframing, because what I found is once you can get that project manager or that product owner or that service manager to be excited about service design, you become their best friend, because you can bring and fill in those holes that they had no idea that they had those holes in their approach.
Yeah,
so it's that connecting the dots thing, and then putting the toolkit where it needs to be.
People, I'm paying attention to the chat because I'm a great multitasker. People are getting discouraged by what I said, so let me back it up a second. No, I'm not saying that service design is still, I think the fundamental approach and the mindset to have, like it's how I look at everything. I just started a business during the quarantine doing a fiction podcast, and I wrote a whole book, and it's up on Amazon if you search my name, and used that as an approach to say, okay, I want to service design what it is to be an independent podcaster and author and creator. And I had my journey maps, I had my blueprints. I mean, I applied everything I've ever learned to putting out, a paperback and a podcast. But that doesn't mean I'm going to call myself, oh, I'm a service designer. What do you do? Oh, I write books. It's like, what? No, I'm an author, and I'm an independent creator who applies ecosystem level, holistic, journey-based thinking to my product, which is now entertaining you with words. But it's trying to say that I'm going to show up to work at such and such grocery delivery service and apply for a UX job and say, I want to be a service designer. It's like, well, no, you are here to coordinate the in-store shopper experience as they go and grab the people's food and put it in bags and then take it to the person who's the car. That right there, I would say you're now, a partner experience architect or something on that level. So don't think I'm saying that service design isn't hot. It's definitely hot, but it's a generic approach. It's not a title unless you are literally designing the service of, a service. And so that's where Megan can say she's a service design director, because she designs a university's information technology services. I design things for a software SaaS company that are products, and I link them together and make lowercase services to serve your need and your job to be done that you're hiring into it to do. But in reality, I introduce myself as a customer researcher and kind of experience architect.
Well, you can say, well, this is a bit confusing. We've talked about this in the past, that now we're to a place in the US where it's becoming mainstream, and service design is actually a thing. And now there are companies looking for service designer, and usually the job description, we've talked about this in the past with Mark Fontaine's like, service designer, and then the description is like basically UXer / coder / developer, just like, okay, this is nothing about service design, which is what you
Unicorn.
said.
Unicorn.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a service design director or whatever it is. We've also are now in a place where service design is so big that we tend to see service design / something, service design / something else, because there are some silos within service design. I'm a service designer / researcher. So that goes along what you're saying or against what you're saying?
That there are roles that have service design in the title, or that we're seeing this kind of hybrid, miscategorized, mislabeled, whatever. So here's my perspective on that. I think it's completely related to the organization and the organization's culture and the organization's design maturity. If you have an org that understands what service design means and knows that they want to put resources behind it and make a spot for it, that's awesome. And you'll start to see service design roles. But if you have organizations that don't get that yet and aren't thinking that way yet, you might see things like design strategist. So I was fortunate that when I was pitching my team in Stanford, and I was in the IT organization at that point, that they really got this concept of service design. I was almost like flabbergasted. I was like, whoa. And what I learned getting more into the culture of the business is that there's a whole culture of service management in IT, which if you've ever been in IT, you know that. And so for them, they do think in services, they think that way, and they see exactly where this plugs in. So it's just, I think it's really unique to the organization. I could have seen myself pitching myself as an experienced designer or a design strategist or a whatever. Like, I don't, in some ways, I don't care what the job title is, as long as we can make the space for that change to happen. And so, yeah, you will see different roles in different organizations because they're at a different place. And you got to figure out how to speak that language of where that organization is.
Okay. We're getting quite a few questions. I'm going to skip to the next question here, and then we'll just take some more at the back. Is that okay with you?
I'm keeping track of questions that I like as well. I can answer later.
You can also ask the one you don't like. It's totally okay.
I'm also keeping track of questions I don't like to avoid.
Okay. All right. So Megan and Erik, where do you see service design in 5 years from now? We just talked about the change between the past 5 years. Now, where do you see this going in the next 5 years?
I mean, this is where service design, just pretend instead of service design, you're just looking at the idea of designing, ecosystem level system models of how let's just call it a customer, doesn't matter, customer, guest, patron, audience, whatever, but your customer interacts with the company as a whole, or the offering as a whole, and what are all the affordances, if you want to take a term, from interaction design, along the way of interacting with your company. And how do all those link together? And how does the messaging and the voice and tone of an ad interact with what people see on the website, interact with, what they see in the product? And what is the experience when people bounce from, device to device, to talk to a person, to talk to a chatbot, to whatever else? And really applying the mindset of experience choreography at a business-wide, system-wide level. And that's where you don't even need to call it design at that point, because it's really, you're now in the realm of planning around a large scale experience that's going to involve stakeholders of all sorts, and not just design, and probably not primarily design. And so, that's where I think, if we're still on the slide about looking for the future, I think it's just going to become something that's much more embedded and not necessarily a role as it is a mandate.
So,
Yeah,
Megan, if it's okay with you, we're almost halfway through, and people really want to know about the blueprinting methodology.
Sure.
Can I switch to the next question? Or you want to answer this one specifically? It's up to you.
Yeah, let me briefly touch on it. I'm going to touch on it here's what I want to see happen. I want to see service design as a mindset and a capability more democratized across other roles like business analysts, project managers, product owners, service managers, those kinds of teams. And I think then they can realize that they need those design expertise resources to fill in those gaps. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm hoping like the next 5 years we see, particularly in the US where most companies haven't even kind of wrap their head around this. So that's what I'm hoping.
Cool. All right. We're going to try to focus on the more practical stuff. People are really eager to actually hear some stuff they can do at home now. Let me get the next one. We did that. I'm going to skip that one. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's okay. We have a whole Touchpoint article on that. So if people really want to get into that.
Okay. Let's see.
We got some meaty questions in here. We could talk all day.
I know. If I have time, we can literally just do another session just with 3 questions. Let's talk about what people want to hear from you today. Practical service blueprinting methodology. Tell us more about what's different about the way you do it and why it is so good.
Absolutely. Okay. So if you are familiar with service design, you've probably seen a picture of a traditional format of a blueprint, right? With the swim lanes and the handoffs and the arrows and the boxes and stuff, right? So have that in your head. And then what I want to say to you is try to do that in a 90-minute session with 8 different stakeholders from IT, marketing, communications, management, etc., right? That is impossible. I have to say, like, what brought Erik and me together in the very beginning was that we were stuck on how do we get this whole blueprinting thing to work in a real work context? Because the only way to create a blueprint is to bring together a cross-functional team of folks that help deliver the service, right? So these are all the business silos that help make up that service experience. And if you assemble them all together and then try to get them to create this complicated diagram, whatever, or even just to elicit the information you need to create that yourself as a service designer, I found it to be really, really difficult. And so wrapping people's heads around what do all the arrows mean and like all the swim lanes and everything was getting in the way of accomplishing what we felt the work was. And so our format really is focused on practicality, and which is why we came up with the whole practical service design brand, I guess, in the beginning, because we know that it's hard to get everyone in a room. It's hard to make progress together. And with the blueprinting, it's a means to an end. It's not an end in of itself. You would never just say, we created a blueprint, we're done. Like that doesn't even work. So whether you're doing a current state blueprint or a future state blueprint, there's always a next step that comes after the blueprint. So the blueprint is a means to the end. And so what we did is we kind of almost deconstructed the blueprint into almost like a checklist of what information do we need to get everyone on the same page of understanding what that current state experience is and how it's being delivered. So if you think, now picture that traditional blueprint format, what we kind of did is we took the arrows and we unpacked them. And so when you look at our blueprint, it is a linear kind of stack of these steps that happen in the service, because we wanted to unpack, well, what happens in that arrow? Like, I don't just want an arrow. I want to understand the context of that. Do
you have an example? Can you show something?
Sure. I can at least show the template so people see what we're talking about here. Let me see if I can bring up.
And that is available on your website, right?
Yeah. Let me.
We'll put it in the chat room.
Yeah, we can put the website in there. I'm trying to think if there's a completed one. Where's my cupcake blueprint? Here it is. Okay, let me get this open and then I'll share my screen.
So while Megan's looking for stuff. So if you think about, just picture any journey map you've ever seen, any customer experience visualization or blueprint, whatever. What I found, and I mean, I was the one who originally came up, with this before I even met Megan. Yeah, this is like a really, really, really early one. That kind of shows it here, is that getting 8 people together in a room and trying to diagnose a systemic business problem that crosses silos and stakeholders and time and customers, and trying to do that together and create the typical journey map or the typical blueprint. Those documents are really more what I would say they're like pamphlets or posters. They're not practical. You can't build them in real time, and you don't really get any action out of them. They're more about like empathy building and sharing and showing stuff. And when you go and see those big glossy, PDFs from like an adaptive path example of what the, exploratoriums thing like looks like, I mean, that's dozens of hours of a graphic designer making these picture perfect things. And it's like, cool, what do we do with this? What do I do? Great, I'm ready. I'm a low level individual contributor. I've got 22 people ready to join me in a room. What do I do? How do I do it? And so it took me, at least a year of experimenting in like 2014 to figure out kind of what you see on the screen now of, okay, you can't really make this in real time. You can't make a traditional map in real time, and you can't really get data out of it, and you can't take action off of it. So what would be the most ultra practical, like we are going to start and end this workshop. We're going to start it without answers. We're going to end it with answers. And that artifact we build, this blueprint we build in the next 4 hours, it's only going to be important to us during those 4 hours. Because when we're done,
right,
we're going to have actionable things to then go and do. So it really took it from a design artifact to a design, activity, and where you're doing actual real work. And so it's not about like we have never taken one of these maps you see on the screen and made it pretty. We've never added cool gradients and arrows, and we've never published it to the internet, like, look at this great work of graphic art you can pin up on the wall. Like, this is an actual thing. And I've been in sessions where, roadmaps are changed. The quarterly planning is changed based on what's in the blueprint. Things are solved in real time that were never known before because you got the stakeholders together. I mean, it is truly like the difference between looking at a satellite view of a battlefield and kind of, thinking about it, and being someone on the ground, on the front line, charge this way. And that's why it's the practical nature of it. It's not about making something cool. It's about arriving at action in that moment, and then you move forward.
I want to also jump in here too, because I know some of you are probably familiar with process mapping, which is where some of the original origins were for a service blueprint. I work closely with a process improvement team now, and I firmly believe there is a place to create a process map diagram. But what you'll understand once you blueprint out a service is that there's all sorts of sub processes buried in all these steps, right? You have support processes that help this step be delivered to a customer. And the goals of doing a process map are different than the goals of doing a blueprint. The blueprint is to look through the lens of your customer at the service and how it is delivered to support that experience for the customer. You don't need a holistic view with every single potential branch or every whatever. Yes, if you're designing organizational processes, you should think through all of those potential branches and all the nooks and crannies of the process. But what I think the key for what we're doing, and just like Erik, I mean, I've applied this at work, many times. And the process of blueprinting is really straightforward. If you use this as a checklist, we get alignment on the understanding of the end-to-end experience, how it's delivered. And then you can see these kind of orange and red colored stickies here. Those are the bottom here, like a breakdown, a challenge, a problem, or an opportunity. And really, our process walks you through, just like a design workshop setting, you're kind of mining your blueprint for this stuff. And then you can synthesize it into, strategic directions or tactical fixes. You might have some ideas that pop out that are like, oh man, we really need to fix the wording on that button. And then you might have other things that are like, oh, we really should think about offering this to a whole new user segment. And so we use this blueprint as a way to elicit those ideas and then mine them, which then turns into your, actionable insights, as we say, or your roadmap or your backlog if it's a development team. So yeah, the blueprint becomes a design workshop tool, basically.
And I think, the metaphor that I think may help clear it up is that typically in UX, which it's been established as something that, produces metaphors and artifacts thing a lot longer than service design is. You're looking at the journey map, the customer experience, the persona, whatever. This is not that. And it took me a while to understand that it's actually perpendicular. So imagine this, we all get together, all 228, oh, someone just left, 228 of us, and say, we're going to buy this old skyscraper. And it's 100 stories tall. It was built in the 1940s, and there's businesses, there's residential, there's restaurants down at the bottom floor. There's so much going on here. It's like, okay, well, what is the customer journey of this skyscraper? It's like, what? There's millions of them. But so it's like, okay, back up. Where's the blueprint of who built this skyscraper? And they say, we don't know. Built by like 1,000 different companies, been retrofitted a million times. There's been reorgs. Okay. We need to blueprint the current state of this skyscraper that has 1 million personas and use cases, but there is only one skyscraper. And this artifact on the screen, that is the visual representation of your skyscraper. It is the first time you'll see a data viz of your business and your business systems. And then you know what you have. Then you know what your skyscraper, where it's strong, where it's weak, what's bad experience, the elevators are slow, the front desk is a weird walk, you have to go around a fountain. That is the same for every customer. You only have one skyscraper lobby. You only have one fountain in the middle of it. You need to map that out instead of trying to take every individual approach, because you don't know what is going on with this skyscraper you purchased. And unless you started a company from the ground up with this mindset and you are the founder, there is nobody in your business skyscraper that knows what is going on with the building. And that is what has unlocked it and kind of made the power of this happen. And I've used it, hundreds of times now to explain we're not mapping out a persona. There is no persona to this blueprint because we're mapping out the business. This is the thing. Like we are who we are.
But I have to keep reorienting because I work with a mapping team that maps business processes. We're not mapping the holistic business process. You're mapping the delivery of the service experience. So this graphic I have up on our blog, to me it kind of captures it, and this is how I diagram it to explain it to my clients. Is look, we're going to look at a particular experience. It might be one of your key experiences that most people are experiencing, or one of the most important experiences, like if you're focusing on customer acquisition or something. So what is that current experience? And yes, you need user research to come up with what this journey is. And then you look down through it at the service delivery. And this is where you can identify where the problems are that lead to a bad experience. So it is a lens through which you are looking through a human-centered lens at the architecture of your skyscraper. And so, yeah, we don't need the whole blueprint of all the internal workings of the skyscraper. We just need to know the lens of the experience of your key journey that you want to improve. I'm going to stop there. I feel like we have lots of questions pouring in, so let's reorient.
Well, I can actually, there's some questions. I think let me show a blueprint. I found a nice one.
Yeah, I'll stop.
That is not any confidential whatevers. So this is, all right. Are you seeing this?
Yes.
Whatever this is. Okay. So this is one using the mural template here. And this is just an example. We use something that was public. But this is the blueprint where you can see like the legend down here, all the different touch point, actor, system, policy, whatever the phases. And then this is like a 13-step blueprint that's mapping out the service of allowing you to sign up for the Slack community. And so you have the steps, new member arrives on the community sign up page. Well, what's the touch point there? The community, what's, Squarespace, MailChimp email sender, the Slack email sender, and I mean, what is the policies here? MailChimp requires a double opt-in. What's a critical moment? New members have to see this email and click if the Slack admin ever gets notified. This is just another email pop-up, must wait to notice. So you're looking at all these different layers, and the sticky notes are all colored to be easily visible to see where hotspots are and opportunity areas.
Yeah, it's like a heat map.
You can see, like orange, like policies, things are dictated by choices, and choices could be changed if it's like, well, maybe we don't want to do MailChimp double opt-in. Let's just let people opt in. They don't have to actually confirm and whatever else. And seeing this at this point, imagine now this was the email opt-in experience for a gigantic company with all these silos and different teams and sales and marketing and back-end technology, front-end technology, business development, all these different stakeholders who need to look at this as their singular Rosetta Stone of what is this whole process. And every single one of these columns can be a different silo. It can be a different organization. It can be a different group of stakeholders.
It usually is.
A different budgets, different funding source. And it's just a fact of business that this doesn't exist until you make it. No one has ever seen this. The CEO hasn't seen this. They've never seen the macro view of a non-fancy, non-presentational visualization of what exactly is happening with our business.
I'm seeing a variety of questions around the who, so I want to just quickly answer some of those. So you would create that top line. That's the user journey, the user experience. You really create always, that. Though. You're not always, but if we're trying to look through the lens of the user, yes, you would go out and go do your user research or create your journey map or whatever. Like that's a great start. Or a service safari, like where you take your business stakeholders out to experience their own service. That's a great way to kind of build empathy with that. And then the people that you create the bottom layers with are the business stakeholders. So you're not bringing in the end user. At this point, you are now bringing in your cross-functional business silos to the table. So you've already taken care of building understanding the customer experience. And yes, you would like someone there to represent the customer, but you don't really want users in a blueprinting session. You want your business stakeholders in a blueprinting session.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know what, I can't see the chat. I don't know what you're answering. But let me point out another quick thing. This top layer of this is not the customer experience. This is the what happens. And it doesn't even have to involve people at all.
That's
and it
true.
can be a system. Yeah. It's just like what actually happens. And so there are things that you need to know to design an experience for a big ecosystem, where there are steps and there are considerations that don't involve the customer at all. They don't see it. They don't know about it. They don't interact with it. But you need to know, oh, this goes to customer support, then this goes to an automated backend system, and this goes to a cron job that only runs every 48 hours. And so that's why it takes that long for the ticket to get answered, because whatever else.
Yeah. So Erik, what is the core difference between the traditional blueprint that you mentioned, adaptive path, for example, the front stage, backstage, support processes, and yours? What is the core difference? What is more practical about yours versus the traditional one?
It's the level of dimensionality that includes the depth of, like, imagine you're looking right now at. The way I always saw it was the blueprint that first inspired me is like I'm standing up on a tall ladder and I'm looking down at something and I'm seeing the map. This is turning the map 90 degrees and looking across it to down all the depth beneath it. Because if you were to take this stuff, this is kind of all you typically get. Of like the what happens and where does it happen and maybe who does it happen to. But it does not include the policy around why do I need to have, new team members are told that signups can take up to 24 hours. Why?
Yeah.
Who can answer that? Why can I change that?
It like unpacks those arrows. So we have the hidden steps here too, which usually would be typically represented in like an arrow going down in an original service blueprint. And then you get no information out of that arrow. But here we're unpacking, well, what's happening in that step. It looks like Erik's going to get you guys the link so you can go check it out.
No, there's already people who have gotten in.
Oh, they're already in it. Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure they're not going to mess up my blueprint.
So it's unpacking the arrows, and then it's adding these additional layers that help the business make decisions and have shared understanding.
Seriously, pull up Journey Map, pull up Service Blueprint on Google Image Search. You will not see any of this stuff. You won't see it. We had to invent this. I did this on sticky. I have photos of me doing this with sticky notes on black 8 foot by 4 foot foam core boards, just trying to figure it out. Going, we're like, I just did everything I read on Smashing Magazine and I still don't have answers 6 years ago. What's going on? And we slowly started to find out if you're not getting that surface to core view, you're just making an empathy map of what does the outside version of my experience look like, but you're not getting the internal, what is the actual X-ray, MRI, PET scan of the internals of my business and my processes and things that the user would never encounter, because in a journey map, are you ever going to run in to the stuff that only those siloed stakeholders know that you had to drag to the workshop to finally get to answer because they work in another state or another country, on a back end, bare iron system, and they've never been asked, why does the cron job take 24 hours? Like, oh yeah, we could make that instant. No one's ever asked us because, I'm a Linux engineer in Geneva who works on systems, and I've never actually been invited to one of these things. And I've had people, fly from other countries to participate in blueprinting sessions pre-COVID because it was so important to get this bottom layer knowledge, because it does not exist in the typical stakeholders that make the journey maps.
So Erik and Megan, we have only like 5 minutes left. Obviously, you're going to have to come back. We have so much question. I don't even know how we're going to handle this. So just to end up this session, let's see. We have some 4 bullet questions I'm going to ask that are kind of like summarizing.
Looks like you're all in there. Erik, do you want to stop your screen share so we can?
Yeah. So how do you plan out your service blueprinting project? How do you facilitate the blueprinting session, especially if this is a bit different? So more practically and tactically, how do you switch from a traditional blueprinting to yours? How do you make it happen?
Yeah, well, first you can download our free guides and ebooks, which walk you through the whole thing, because we're not going to be able to walk you through all of it in our remaining few minutes. But I think I would summarize it from, you are not doing the work. You are the facilitator, and you're organizing a cross-functional group of your business stakeholders to understand how they're delivering an experience. If you don't have designer resources or a customer insights type person who can speak for the customer, you may need to do some user research first to really understand what that user experience is that you want to focus on. But usually that is already kind of a hotspot that's being bubbled up in the organization, which is why you're being brought in or you're on that project. So yes, you want to understand what the experience is today, and you can either do that by having someone represent that who's knowledgeable, or you do user research and kind of build that. And then you assemble this cross-functional team and facilitate them through this session. A blueprint like Erik showed would take probably between 60 and 90 minutes. We have resources for you that if you want to use them, they can help you kind of introduce the method to your group that you've brought together. And then it's a checklist. It's just like Erik showed with the legend on the sidebar there. You just walk through each step. You pre-set up the steps. You make sure you review those first to make sure they're right. And then you just walk through step by step and you start going down. And it's like a checklist. And by the end of your session, you'll have a really complete picture of this blueprint that you can start harvesting things out of, whether that's we're missing certain information, or we were missing a whole stakeholder, we need to bring them in and fill in these gaps, or we've got all these ideas that we want to kind of start to wrap our heads around what to do about it. Because that's the ultimate goal. If you're looking at a current service experience and trying to improve it, your ultimate goal is to get to a place that's like a roadmap, right? Is how does the organization improve that experience?
One thing to answer like a bunch of million questions in the chat right now, we should be clear. What we just saw, that is the course we have on Teachable that has the Dallas 2020 thing. And so how to facilitate, how to run the meeting. Yeah. You watch a 2-hour live blueprinting session that we recorded for you.
Yeah, we simulated a real
non-edited of doing the whole blueprinting and facilitation to learn this. Or you can go get the ebook, for free and read the whatever. But like, this is what we're talking about. This is what that online course, what this coupon will get you, and you'll be able to just learn it and walk away, then just start doing it and sign up for a mural or whatever you want to use to do it. So obviously we couldn't explain it all over this chat, but it's
just
like
the number one. the number one takeaway is that it's more actionable. It's faster. You get to the insight faster, and you actually have more depth by doing it this way versus the more academic way.
I think it's not that it's more actionable, it's that it is actionable. I mean, this is like, it's like cranking back the crank on a catapult and bringing that basket back and putting stuff inside and then saying, great, cool. And then you pull the lever and action flies out of it. I mean, there's no point to do this if you're not planning on taking action. So I would say that it's so hyper practical that, you know, it's like showing up to your first day at the gym without your gym clothes and just walking around and looking at the machines. Like, unless you are there to do something, it's like you're not going to get anything out of it. This is work. This is not a workshop. This is work.
Right.
Brendan, do we have time for maybe like a couple of questions? I know we have probably like 155 questions, but do you have like two big ones that we can just, you know, discuss now? We're going to have you back, Megan and Erik. Obviously, people are just really, really craving for information here.
Man, I've been trying to pick. There's so many good ones. You guys have been so engaged. I really like this one from Philip. Philip asked, how do you select the right scope or level of detail for a particular problem you're trying to solve? So it's not too broad, but it's manageable.
There's
this one a lot.
There's a rule of thumb on that, which has been consistent regardless. This is one of those, I don't know what to call it. But anyways, look, you can blueprint from the Big Bang until now in 25-ish steps, or you could blueprint what it took to connect to this webinar in 25 steps. But really, once you hit about 25 steps, and this is something that was been proven like in the field after doing hundreds of these, you just need to break it down. And so, blueprint the entire history of the universe in 25 steps, and then it'll all be 1/25 of, you know, the creation of the galaxies and what was involved there, or the last hour on a Zoom call. But once you get past that, you need to pick your Zoom level. Remember that Eames video, the powers of 10 you saw in like 5th grade? It's like, what Zoom level do you want to view this at? But you can't make something that's so unwieldy that you're trying to cover, you know, I've had some blueprints get up in the 30 and 40 and 50 steps. And now it's like, well, now we're too far out. We don't have the level of detail and it's too unwieldy. So let's figure out the thing we want to map needs to fit around 25 steps, only because the human mind can't comprehend something more complex than that. And that's just what real world usage has shown.
Totally. So there's a length thing and a level of Zoom. I would say the more effective blueprints I've done are more zoomed in on a particular journey. And so it's not at the UI level, like I click this button, then I fill out this field, then I do this thing. It's like a level up from that, which is more like I fill out the form, then I'm sent a confirmation email, then I go to this thing. So it's, if you think of it kind of at the macro touch point level, that might help you narrow in on the right level of Zoom. And it's focused on a particular scenario. You have to think about a real scenario to blueprint it out. You can't think about a hypothetical one. So in that sense, we would suggest you pick the most high impact scenario that you're seeing that users are engaging with. It might be the one that the most users are engaging with, or it might be the most painful one that a segment of your users are dealing with. So if you're trying to improve customer acquisition, or you're trying to fix the customer support experience, you kind of zoom in at like that particular flow of your experience. And I found that to be a really effective way of zooming in and looking at like a complete task flow for those of you who are in the UX design world.
Robin, do you have a question?
Yeah, I've got one here. We've actually got a couple from Matthew Shipp, and I think the one that I think was connecting for me, especially when Erik was talking a little bit about the depth in the blueprint and uncovering, why the connectors are going the way they are, what's causing maybe some problems there. And Matthew's question was centering around identifying opportunity space. So he struggles with it. He struggles convincing others. And so I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
ideally it's emerging as a hotspot from your business. So like in Erik's case, when he was in the care organization, he was looking at, what was it, the top call drivers kind of thing. For me, my team's done some kind of foundational user research that's elicited some hotspots, right? Or the business has just decided that there's a big problem, and that's the area they want to zoom in on. So when we talk about opportunity space, it's looking at the business and what area of the business needs the most help from a user experience perspective. So that's kind of how I would frame it. And if you are just trying to socialize this idea with a team and they don't necessarily have like a hotspot, I would just focus it on like what's the most important customer journey and the piece of the customer journey that's the most critical to the business. So you could do a kind of a quick mapping, like inventory of the different phases of the experience, and then say where should we focus. You could even just do a dot vote if they can't decide, like where do we focus? Is it customer acquisition, support? Where is it?
Let me break down a real example of what was an opportunity space in a scenario. So in the past, we helped one of those monthly box of stuff companies, where you sign up and you get stuff once a month in a cardboard box. And the opportunity space there was like new users sign up and then getting the user onboarded. Where are they at in the logistics cycle of filling the boxes, shipping them, getting them on, so they start to get the stuff every month, and then getting it out of the warehouse. Comes from overseas, goes in the warehouse, goes in the box, and then goes out to the person. That's the opportunity space. Is, hey, we got a new person. We want to get them their cool little gadget toys, as fast as possible, so that they keep sticking around. The scenarios then inside that opportunity space are the individual blueprint. So a scenario might be somebody signed up just after we sent out the last month and we can't get them a new box for 45 days. Or someone signed up just before we're about to close this month and we can get them a box in 15 days. And then that whole gray area. So it's like, what are all the different scenarios that are around a new person signs up to get their shipment of cool stuff, and we have maybe 5 or 6 things, and those 5 or 6 things cover 95% of individual personas use cases, because you're not mapping out the personas problem, you're mapping out the business problem of fulfilling the needs of that opportunity space. And so we were doing like shipping logistics of like a warehouse, and it's like, look, if someone signs up at this point, we can't actually ship them something within the next cycle. Okay, so what's an opportunity? What if we have some boxes set aside that we can ship out of that 30-day cycle and just do it ad hoc, and then they might get one box and 2 weeks later get another box. And we just say, well, it's better that they're engaged rather than having to wait 6 weeks because they came in the middle of a previous one. And so that would be a blueprint each, but the opportunity space was new customer, how do we get them stuff?
So I think we're going to be running out of time here. Just to go back to what you just discussed here, when you actually just start with an idea, right? You have a plan, you go to your company, you had those 25 steps, and you have a pretty good idea of how far and how deep you want to go. And then you start finding out stuff. You start doing stakeholder interviews and user interviews, and then you have to zoom on this and zoom on this and zoom on that. And you end up having, I have personally done like 30 feet long blueprints because every step has to be documented and so on and so forth. So the practicality of yours, how does this help a more academic way of doing blueprinting, which is add, and you have this monster map, as Erik was, like a satellite view?
Well, this is the blueprint. It is designed to contain the owners and the action items and the things that want to be done out of it, because it's being co-created by the stakeholders who have a stake in the blueprint and then the opportunities and the scenarios themselves. So it's not like, this is not customer research. This isn't the UX people designing a customer journey and then sharing it out and printing it out to put it up on a wall. This is the people who can take action and who can do stuff. They're there. They're on the mural with you, and then they're taking the action. And so there is not usually much of a like an after action, okay, let's think about it for a while. Like, you're figuring it out as you go and making those decisions and populating your backlogs and your roadmaps and your to-do lists, based on what you're finding out. And so once you're finished with the workshop, the mural is like a nice reference points to go back and remember, but it should be spinning off work like a merry-go-round that's going around too fast and children are flying off of it, those should be the things you're actually going and doing while you're building it. You need that centrifugal force to be throwing work out to get done. That's the practical part of it, because otherwise it's just a ugly digital wall of sticky notes. It doesn't do anything. You have to do something during the creation of it, and that's why you have to have stakeholders representing the entire blueprint in the room. And we stress that in the class and in the ebook, where it's like, look, if you have marketing, sales, back-end support, executive, budget, legal, and finance, you need someone from every one of those silos in the room. And if you can't get them, you wait until you can get them, because doing it yourself defeats the whole purpose of the process.
Do you end up having follow-up sessions? So for example, a blueprint is usually a living document, right? You actually just put it up and you add and you remove, and it's like a living document for all the stakeholders. In your case, you kind of make it like it's a work session, and when it's over, it's over. Do you actually go back in time, actually do another session and another session? It's still a living document.
I mean, it's really like, who's the owner? If you're looking at like a DAISY decider, whatever the main person is that's like owning the opportunity space and the scenarios, in the end, there needs to be just one single throat to choke on, well, who's responsible for this? And if we go back to the skyscraper metaphor, there needs to be like the skyscraper superintendent who's like, oh yes, I'm going to make sure that we follow through on what we discovered here, because I am actually the person who is responsible for this skyscraper, and be it the elevators, be it the lobby, be it the concierge, be it the plumbing, somebody needs to actually be an owner. And the great part about the blueprint is that now the people who aren't actually the owners, the person who just makes sure the plumbing in the skyscraper works, they have their action items, and they can go do it. And that kind of central facilitator, the person who has the stake in not the outcomes, but the stake in the blueprint being successful, they can now say, okay, this is what we decided. Here's who I contact. Here's where we have to go. And then when they go back to it, 90% of the people who built the blueprint, they're not going to come back to it. That's not their job. It's the person who is the key, driver of getting things done. That's their job. And they might go back to it and invite people back and iterate on it. But, there has to be somebody who is responsible for going from current state to future state. And it's not a team of 40 stakeholders. It's one or two people.
So Megan, I may actually give you the closing word here. What did you hate the most about the traditional blueprint? What decided you to actually go and change things up, right? I mean, is it so bad?
No, I think that format is an effective storytelling tool. I just found it impractical in the moment with my cross-functional stakeholders. Like I remember having a session, I was trying to live, like sticky note, create that on a whiteboard. And I just remember feeling like I was just failing, and like everyone in the room thought I couldn't do my job, and they didn't know what we were trying to accomplish. And so for me, it's about the real-time engagement of the team in a design session. And that was the primary driver. I think if you want the traditional format as a communications tool, there's nothing stopping you once you've gone through our format to reverse engineer back out a diagram like that illustrates the experience and the handoffs. So I think you get the information you need, and then it's whether you think that's a useful tool for you in your work.
Sure. And you're right. It's just a tool. At the end of the day, you actually find something better between the two of them. I mean, I've done 20 blueprints this year, and none of them are the exact same one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Brandon, you have one more question. I think there was some question about the site and the discount code maybe not working. Is this because it's not working yet?
Megan addressed that in the chat.
Okay.
Posted the link with the coupon code in there already. So scroll up to about 109, and
it might have been people's. As you're typing, it's all one word, and so who knows? It could have been that. But yeah, there's a link. We can send it out that directly applies the code if you're wanting to use that. Should be live. We see a couple people have already used it, so thank you. We appreciate it, and we're just super excited that more people want to learn this technique. And I hope that the idea of trying to do service design in a practical way helps us break free from a bit of this kind of academic theory driven place that I think the field has been to some degree. We just need to get it to be actionable. We need to get it in the hands of people who can make decisions about services and about how we're delivering them.
The other, I guess, my final, if we want to focus on the blueprinting, something that I want to make clear is, at least like where I work in my day job, I've had at this point dozens of instances where I hear about people who are in a role and serving a function where they would have never done anything like this before. They are not in design. They're not in product. Slack me and say, hey, I'm doing a blueprint thing. Can you just help me out really quick? And I hear about it across, this gigantic company across the world. And where we have, I've had customer service reps, like actual phone agents, people whose job is to sit in a call center and answer your phone calls, be like, I'm going to blueprint something. And they spin it up and they ask for help and they gather their people together. And so that's why I'm the word design, it's so exceptionally limiting to this discipline, and trying to figure out how a call center agent who wants to do a blueprint, are they now a service designer? Do they need to learn service design? It's like, who cares? They're trying to get something done and map something out and blueprint something and take action. And I swear to everything, I have had customer support agents build blueprints that had actions taken by the product and service and design and whatever teams based on that person, the first time they have ever had that access to be able to contribute back into the company experience at that level, because they had the blueprint as their tool. When you look at it, you're like, oh, wow, geez, yeah, let's fix that. And then suddenly it's like, you are bringing together the company in a way that has never been done before. And that's something where it's not about design. It's about, do you want what's best for your customer and how they're going to interact with your business? Great. You need a tool to be able to see it so that you can solve it. And it has nothing to do with design. It just has to do with who can see the current state of the choreography, and then how are you going to come up with a future state of the choreography?
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Erik. Design is problem solving, right? It's not drawing, right? It's problem solving. Right.
So, Megan and Erik, thank you so much. I don't want to be abusing your time. I know you have to go back to your little kids, Megan. So, I think it's fair to say we're going to have you come back. We have like,
we would love to come
1,000
back.
We have 1,000 questions, and they are all very, very good. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. We'll just get together and try to figure out if we can get you back. Maybe in October or November, we'll figure something out. But thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you so much for all your wonderful content and information. And we hope that people take the class, or at least download the book and go to your blog and inform themselves, first of all, because we're trying to empower them to do good. And sometimes the academic part of design kind of like holds people back from doing good, right? So we're trying to get them to get their hands dirty, so to speak, and make the world a better place.
Well, thank you for having us. It's been really fun and so good to see everyone. Hope you're all, staying good these days. It's hard.
Yay.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Erik, and good luck with the tax deadline tomorrow.
Good luck, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks again for joining.
Thanks.